Chester VenHuizen, you are our field representative, missionary farmer, you call yourself. You are on the ground with the Turkana all the time. You hear their concerns, you hear those stories. What is that like to actually just, go back and hear another person has died?
Yeah, I mean, we know that death is a reality, especially in parts of the developing world because of lack of food and clean water. It's disturbing, to say the least. I know it's preventable. And I tend to focus on the solution rather than the problem. So even though the problem impacts me and affects me, to me it's a travesty, it's an injustice. In today's world when there's such an abundance of food, and the earth, as a farmer, I know the earth has the potential to produce. God put the power in the earth to supply us with water and to produce as much food as the human race needs. And it just takes our will, our willingness and our effort and our participation in helping our brothers and sisters in a place like Turkana to be able to get the necessary resources, just some basic infrastructure to get water out of the ground so they can start growing food. We can prevent those needless deaths.
Chester, we have a lot of people that are watching us for the very first time. We're getting that information that more and more people are watching our programs. They may not be familiar with what we've done in Turkana. Can you give us a brief history as to our relationship with you and the people there?
Well, we discovered about 4 years ago, we came into a wonderful relationship with Glory Outreach Ministries, a small indigenous Turkana Christian group that had a burden for their own people. And we became acutely aware of the fact that people were starving and going hungry. And most of the viewers that are watching us today have probably heard of that severe drought in the Horn of East Africa and the Horn of Africa. And a lot of attention through the media was brought to that. Well, we stepped in, Crossroads stepped in with a response and said, look, we can make a difference. And we know that the people that are partnered with Crossroads and 100 Huntley Street viewers, both in the US and Canada and via satellite and internet, would be very concerned about this situation as well. In fact, people were calling and saying, what can we do? What is Crossroads doing to address this need, this problem? So we stepped in, we jumped in, and we assessed the situation, and we realized that we could make a difference by getting water up to the surface of the ground so people could grow food. That was the biggest challenge right there. So we've spent almost 4 years just setting up the infrastructure, getting engineers in, design teams, surveyors, to figure out a way to set up a gardening project, a farming project where people could have water to irrigate their crops 365 days a year. And guess what? We've been working endlessly, tirelessly, so to speak, to bring it to this point. And we have some really good news to share with our people, with our viewing audience today.
So when we're looking at this whole idea, Cheryl and Chester, of food security, that's really what we're doing. We are making life more secure for people in Turkana because they will have access to not only the ability to garden, but also the water to make sure the gardening takes place.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so the good news is, I mean, let me spill it out because on this last trip, I'm just back from Turkana, which is up in the northern part. For those who don't know where Turkana is, it's a region. It's probably one of the driest regions in Kenya. And that region has experienced perennial drought year after year, and people have been dependent on food relief. And we know that you can feed a person for a day, but they'll be hungry the next day. But if you give people the ability to grow their own food, guess what? They will have food for a lifetime. And so that's why we call it drought-proofing people. So I'm just back from Turkana, and we have, for the very first time in history, the very first gardens are up and running. And we're talking about 36-acre blocks of land.
Wow.
With 120 gardens. And we're talking about everybody having a 1,000-liter tank. We're talking about solar panels, pumping water up out of the ground, hoses, and people watering their crops.
Yeah.
Now, that's phenomenal. And the very first families, we have 60 families that have started planting seed and growing their own food.
Well, I hope you are as impressed and encouraged as I am. I've been here at Crossroads now about 16 months, and when I heard about this project, I went, wow. I was so encouraged by what I saw.